Aquaba Magic, welcome home.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Midday News. The bulletin is live from our studios here in Kokomlemle. Is on Joy 99.7 FM here in Accra. Also live on Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi, affiliates across Ghana, including A1 Radio in Bogatanga and Kaliawo FM in Akachi. You can also download the My Joy Online app from our Play Store and App Store to listen live on the internet. In this edition, Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbing hands Health Minister 2 hours to appear and answer a question filed by an MP as he describes the reason offered for the minister's absence as disrespectful.
I direct that the minister appears before Parliament within 2 hours. The reason he has given for his inability is completely disrespectful of Parliament.
We're live in Parliament. Also, Auditor General orders some 13 senior lecturers of public universities to pay up almost 3 million cedis of public funds spent on their doctoral studies abroad after failing to return to post.
The report recommends that management should pursue the affected officers and their guarantors to refund the total amount, or the Vice Chancellor be made to pay the money.
Details as the Auditor General warns he will surcharge Vice Chancellors of the schools concerned. The nation's quest to defeat COVID-19 through vaccination of 20 million citizens under threat as fake news and misinformation persists.
If you call yourself a Christian, a minister of the gospel, and you're going supervising churches to ensure they follow these guidelines, you are not a Christian. You never were.
I have faith, but taking the vaccine is also common sense and it's also wisdom.
As the Ghana Education Service prepares to roll out guidelines to deal with hairstyles in schools, a former Director General insists parents must send their children to schools where they are ready to conform to its rules.
You want to change Achimota. That cannot happen because Achimota has built this tradition almost 100 years ago. And if it doesn't meet your expectation, of course, there are 700 schools.
We'll also hear from the Education Minister who's been speaking to Joy News. In sports,
we hear from the CEO of Bofokwa Tunnel after he and match officials were assaulted brutally during a Division 1 football match against Wamanafo Mighty Royals.
And in our Ghana Man series, we explore the relevance of taboos in Ghanaian communities. And in showbiz, the most anticipated music awards were held over the weekend. We'll bring you highlights of the 3 music awards.
So far as it's not touching your butt, there's nothing wrong with that. But I mean, you have a nice boobs, nice face.
We have that and more here on the Midday News with me, Emefa Apau. Many thanks for joining us. We are your home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. I am MFA Pau. Now, Health Minister Kweku Agyeman-Menu has been ordered by Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbing to appear before the House within 2 hours or risk possible sanctions. He's billed to answer a question filed by a Member of Parliament but failed to show up. Listen to Majority Whip, or Chief Whip, Frank Anodompre, explaining why the Minister is not present in Parliament.
I engaged the Minister, and he indicated to me that he's engaged in other pressing demand outside Accra, and so he's unable to attend upon the House this morning, and he sent money. He'll show up and answer the question accordingly.
Well, the Minority Chief Whip, Mutaka Mubarak, requested the intervention of the Speaker, insisting the reasons provided are not satisfactory.
The question being programmed was not done yesterday. The Speaker, this was done last week. Mr. Speaker, if we are going to start with these same excuses of ministers attending to the House, having other things that are more important than appearing before this House, this is a time around budget when all of them needs to be in Accra, needs to be in the House, is a Member of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, if we relax and allow these things to fester, then all of us will be held responsible for making this House to continuously be seen to be weak. Why will the Ministers of Health say some other engagement that are equally important than appearing before Parliament? The Speaker, if it was his betting to become minister, will other things be more important to him than that?
Now listen to the directive from the Speaker, Alban Babing.
We don't take any person by surprise. Questions are filed, they are processed, they are sent to the ministers, they go back through the business committee, they are programmed for ministers to appear on specific days to answer the questions. So the minister responsible for health is aware that the question has been scheduled for today. The reason he has given for his inability to present himself before the House to answer the question is completely disrespectful of Parliament. And I am not going to take that. I direct that the minister appears before Parliament within 2 hours to answer the question. Failing to do so, the necessary consequences will apply.
Well, Parker, I'll take you live to Parliament now where my colleague Kwesi Parker Wilson joins us. Parker, there's been reactions to this directive from the Speaker. Tell us more about it. Parker? Hello, Parker.
Hello, MFR.
Well, so I'm asking about the reactions to this directive from the Speaker, from members.
Well, so it's clear that the minority MPs are incensed by the attitude of the minister. In fact, the deputy minority whip also raised concerns about the trade and industry minister who was scheduled to appear before the House. But he alleges that the minister was actually at a funeral, and they believe that going forward is not the best. But the majority leader himself has been responding to Muntaka Mubarak. He says that he shouldn't create the impression that the 7th Parliament, the ministers were disrespecting members of Parliament. It has never been so. Now, if it is going to be a new rule, then they need to proceed from today that ministers would be compelled to appear before the House to answer questions going forward.
But it's interesting to hear the Speaker's directive and that if the minister does not appear, there will be sanctions. What exactly do we know will be these sanctions?
Well, so it could be, the Speaker could, caution him against that practice and ask him to do so going forward when he is required to appear before the House. And also suspend him from appearing or coming to the chamber for some time. These are some of the available sanctions. Sanctions available to the Speaker, I should say. So we are waiting. In fact, my source tells me that a call has been placed to the Health Minister, and we hope and expect that within the next 2 hours, he makes himself available to the House to answer the question from the MP for Sefia Kontomra.
Okay, so away from this, we know that the Appointments Committee have sent a report to Parliament on the Finance Minister designate. Tell us more.
Yeah, so we had a conversation with the chairman of the Appointment Committee, Joe Sewusu, who tells us that the committee has recommended by consensus the approval of Ken Ofori-Atta as the Minister for Finance. And so the report will be tabled before the House soon. When that is done, the MPs would have to vote to adopt the report. Now, he is expecting that members of the House, including the NDC, would vote in favor of the adoption of the recommendation.
That's Kwesi Parker Wilson there reporting from Parliament. Now, the Auditor General has directed the University of Cape Coast, the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, and Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, GIMPA, to recover almost 3 million cedis spent to train some senior lecturers. The schools paid for the doctoral studies of the 13 lecturers under the agreement that they return to service the school for a fixed period after their studies. But some failed to return to Ghana, whilst others who returned to the country went on to other lucrative jobs elsewhere. Vice-Chancellor of the university's cities are to pay up the money if the identified beneficiary staff fail to do so. In the following report, my colleague Elton Brobe puts the spotlight on the audited accounts of some of these universities.
Let's start from the University of Cape Coast, and according to the audited report covering 2018 and 2019, the school conditions of service for senior members of public universities of Ghana provides that study leave with pay may be granted at the discretion of the Vice-Chancellor after an applicant has served 3 years. The provision again requires that after the successful completion of the course, the officer granted study leave with pay shall return to serve the university for a period of 2 times the number of years or pay in lieu of service, the total expenditure including salaries and allowances plus interest at the bank rate during the period of study leave. On the contrary, According to the Auditor General, the University of Cape Coast granted study leave with pay amounting to 1.8 million Ghana cedis to 8 staff members, but the officers did not return to serve the university. The report blames the anomaly on the Vice-Chancellor and the Training and Development Committees in different posture towards the implementation of the policy document. The report recommends that management should pursue the affected officers and their guarantors to refund the total amount, or the Vice-Chancellor be made to pay the money. The audit also disclosed that the university granted sabbatical leave to 3 officers to undertake their leave at various sister universities and other government departments, of which the officers within the leave period drew salary of 128,000 Ghana cedis from the University of Cape Coast and took same from the sister universities and government departments. The Ghana Institute for Management and Public Administration and the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology are also said to have spent almost 1 million Ghana cedis on further training of some of their senior staff who either failed to return to the country or abandoned posts on their return.
Let's bring in Elton Brobe. He joins me in the studio. So is there a response from the mentioned universities in that report you put together?
So, MFA, the University of Cape Coast provided response to only one person. As far as the number is concerned, we have Frank Boahen, Gideon Nimakun, Elias Menyawu, Simon, Peter Kafui, Aheto Collins, Ose Sapon, Gloria Ochre, Charles Nkwewusu, and Jerome Pam. These are the guys who went outside of the country. Almost 2 million spent on them, and they are yet to come back to the school to learn. Now, the only response provided by the University of Cape Coast is that they are in the process of trying to get to them to recover the money. Now, they spoke about one Dr. Simon Peter Kafui, who, according to them, his lawyers has challenged the decision by indicating that the expenditure incurred on him were government funds and that he has moved to another government institution, a claim which management rejected. And for that reason, because he's working in another government institution, there's no need for him to pay the money back. And for that reason, he should be allowed to continue to do his work. They are saying that they are on the heels of these individuals to get the money back. Interesting. But you've been checking with the Education Ministry on this subject. What is the ministry saying? So I spoke to the minister himself. He says that they have been given a copy of the auditor report of the Auditor General. The practice is that they will wait for Parliament to summon them, and then they will get all the relevant bodies, including the Vice-Chancellors, to appear before the Parliament's Public Accounts Committee to provide a response. And that is done. They are in the process of gathering all the information that they need. Well, thank you very much, Alton Brobe. The Chief Executive Officer of the non-governmental organization Education Watch, Kofi Asare, says that this development has brought into question the patriotism of university lecturers.
Among others, they are actually supposed to train the youth and imbibe in them the spirit of nationalism, the spirit of staying in Ghana and pursuing their dreams and mission. Unfortunately, if these very people who are supposed to mold you into someone who is going to hatch your dreams and realize it in Ghana, actually, have no hope in Ghana, they are not interested in traveling outside the country, then it becomes it becomes a big issue. These are people who are supposed to be mentors. So if mentors are actually flying out of the country under these circumstances, then it goes to negate, the essence of the nationalism, the patriotism, the can-do spirit, and all that we've been talking about all this while that our youth need to imbibe.
That's Kofi Asare, Chief Executive of Education Watch. We turn our attention to health now, and Ghana's quest to vaccinate 20 million of the population and in effect gain herd immunity, which will help the country defeat COVID-19, is under threat. Fake news and misinformation have taken over factual information on social media. In a Joy News latest hotline documentary titled Conspiracies, Jabs and Myths, Manuel Cranting of our health desk looks at the effect of the misinformation on the vaccination exercise. Here accepts.
Me, I'm not going to take. Yeah, and actually, I heard it was for the poorest country. Something which is for the poorest country.
Several conspiracy theories had already gone ahead of the rollout and eventually entered the church. Pastor Chris Oyakilome is a respected preacher with millions of followers.
If you call yourself a Christian, a minister of the gospel, and you're going supervising churches to ensure they follow these guidelines, you are not a Christian. You never were.
He talks about how COVID-19 vaccines and masks actually usher in the mark of the beast, a reference to an apocalyptic passage from the book of Revelation that suggests that the Antichrist will test Christians by asking them to put a mark on their bodies.
Church, vaccine is vaccine. I have faith. But taking the vaccine is also common sense, and it's also wisdom.
Taylor is a member of Christ Embassy.
So everyone in the church may have his or her opinion. Personally, I don't believe in the virus. I don't also believe in the vaccine. I realized that the composition of this vaccine contained mRNAs, which is messenger ribonucleic acid, which actually tends to alter the DNA of an individual.
People are probably right to be apprehensive, given that these vaccines were produced hurriedly. But what vaccines do we have, and what does the science say?
The two vaccines that we have at the moment, that is the Covishield, is the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine manufactured by Serum Institute of India, and what you call the Sputnik V, which is manufactured by a company in Russia. Now, emergency use authorization is a pathway that we use. That pathway is just to ensure that a needed medical product, especially in a pandemic, is made available in a timely manner. We have not bypassed any safety or efficacy standards that we would normally look out for.
You hear the excerpts of our latest hotline documentary, Conspiracies, Jabs and Myths, produced by my colleague Manuel Cranting. The full documentary airs tonight at 8:30 p.m. on the Joy News channel, as well as all our social media platforms. I'll take you back to education now, where a former Director General of the Education Service, Michael Insoa, has told parents they must be prepared to get the awards to conform to rules of schools they choose to attend for their secondary education. The last 2 weeks has seen controversy over the refusal of the Achimoto School to enroll 2 Rastafarian students. Mr. Nsoa, who chairs the GES Council, has been sharing his view on the matter, as the GES is expected in the coming days to announce guidelines on the matter.
I think it's about non-compliance of some parents, because all the parents that went to Achimota and collected prospectus and rules and regulations, I'm not sure everybody was happy with everything that was on the prospectus or the rules and regulations, but because they had to comply in order to get their children admitted into Achimota, they took the. But so you go to Achimota, you see something peculiar about Achimota. You want your children to have that sort of. So you decide to go to Achimota. You are fascinated about Achimota, the way they do everything about Achimota. Now you go there and then you think that no, you want to change Achimota. That cannot happen, because Achimota has built this tradition almost 100 years ago, 1924, 27. We are in 2021, so it's about 100 years. So why do you want to change it?
Michael Insoa is a former Director General of the Ghana Education Service. Now, the Conference of Heads of Assisted Schools says low cutting of hair ensures smooth running of academic work. Alhaji Yakub Abubakar is president.
So since the school environment is for the purposes of learning, since time immemorial, this practice has been there that if you are coming to school for the purposes of learning, lower your hair so that you will not be bothered how to style it and stuff like that, and you will not be bothered with things being in your hair that will disturb the other colleague students and what have you.
Well, Education Minister Dr. Yawase Aduchum is confident the guidelines to be announced by GES will put the matter to rest.
I don't think GES rescinded anything, but what I'll tell you is this. My chief director of this ministry, the parent and the headmaster or headmistress have been in meetings. They've been meeting. Thursday, there was a long meeting here. We'll find a solution to the crisis. And thereafter, GES will issue directives to all headmasters and headmistresses as to what to do.
Well, Child Rights International wants the GES to ensure that the proposed guidelines has the interest of students. Executive Director Bright Appiah has been speaking on the probe.
The call made by the minister is a good call, and I expect that CHAS, which more or less are the managers of the school, would also collaborate with the Ministry and Ghana Education Service to come up with policies that will be beneficial to children, and then also will safeguard the welfare of children within the school environment.
Bright Appiah is Executive Director of Child Rights International. This is the Midday News here on Joy 99.7 FM, also live on myjoyonline.com as well as on Facebook as well. It's time to take you around the country, and Joseph Akable joins me with that. Joseph, let's start from the Greater Accra region. We are learning of fresh attempts to re-engineer the capital. Tell us about it.
Yes, the program is dubbed Make Accra Work Again. The project is expected to deal with the negative impact of perennial floods on residents, sanitation, security, among others. Here's Regional Minister Henry Korte speaking speaking on the project.
I cannot continue if I sit in my office and begin to roll out plans. But bringing people together and they also contributing wholeheartedly. Yes, Neil and Tay may have a plan. Wherever it is, we'll put it together. And I've made an appeal to them for all of them to either verbally make their contributions or give me a 1 or 2 pager so that we put all together and then come out with the working plan before we launch the Let's Make Accra Work.
Some MPs have pledged their support for the project. One of them is MP for Koliklote, Dr. Zanato Ajiman Rollins, whose constituents usually suffer when it floods.
I think it's a good start. I'm glad it's happening before the rains set in, because hopefully preemptive action can be taken so that we're not doing the perennial apologies and reassurances to people about what the situation is with regards to flooding in their homes and everything. And it takes political will. And if the regional minister, who's a political appointee, is willing to do what has to be done, I think it can be done.
Off to the Bono East region now, where the Minister Kwesi Adujan has been speaking about armed robberies there. Joseph.
It will be recorded that a top Muslim cleric was killed in the Pro East district of the region early this month. According to Mr. Adujan, government would provide more logistics and personnel in some parts of the region in order to clamp down on the activities of these robbers.
It's a district now. There is a police with just some few men and women manning it. It's not enough. That is, these criminals have sophisticated weapons. So there's also the need for our security officers to undergo frequent training, build their capacity, to meet the sophistication of the robbers. And then probably the judiciary will also have to look at a stiffer penalty for people who commit robbery and these crimes.
Let's go to the Ashanti region now, where the Environmental Protection Agency has taken interest in an alleged leakage of a gas storage facility at the new Ketia market in Kumasi.
Traders fear the gas leakage could trigger a disaster at the slightest spark of fire if the situation is not urgently addressed, and the EP has directed management of the market to report detailed information on the leakage to the National Petroleum Authority. Prince Appiah has the rest of the story.
Amidst challenged gas leakage, the food vendors expressed fear over emergency exits. The EPA wants management of the facility to work with safety agencies to ensure the right thing is done. Samuel Oting is Ashanti Regional Manager.
We monitor most of the time, but if you are going ahead to do things of this nature, you need to also acquire the necessary permit.
A consultant to the Brazilian construction firm Contractor, Emmanuel Danso, says prior to the gas installation, all safety agencies were engaged.
All the service providers, we have them on board. So for now, the issue that was pending has been resolved. It's KCMA maintenance team that has to take full control of these situations and keep routine maintenance.
Meanwhile, some traders are operating close to the gas storage. The National Disaster Management Organization sees this as a threat and has called for their immediate evacuation. Kwabna Sintre as Regional NADMO Manager.
I just called the mayor and he has sent his engineers to demolish all those containers, and the food vendors around, they all have to leave.
Prince Appiah with that report. And Joseph, just before you go, you have Ghana Man series for us, taboos in communities across Ghana.
Yes, it's the bit about certain days that you cannot farm. Mohammed Nuruddin has this interesting story for us as Ghana Man series.
Prohibit failure.
It is prohibited to go to the farm
for the minister's absence as disrespectful. Also, Auditor General orders some 13 senior lecturers of some public universities to pay up almost 3 million cedis of public funds spent on their doctoral studies abroad after failing to return to post. We have sports, and then also in showbiz, the most anticipated music awards were held over the weekend. We have highlights of that, and also hear from Bishop Charles Ajinasare, who's been silencing critics of wealthy men of God.
There are times we blame people who have jets, please. So the businessman, it's okay to have a plane, but the pastor, it is wrong to have a plane. Why?
Women of Mighty Royals, they assaulted match officials during their game against regional rivals Tano Bofakwa last Sunday. Now the fans pounced on center referee Niatire Santuo Aziz and his assistant Suleiman Mohammed Yakubu Abdul Rahman and the fourth official Hasim Yakubu after the game ended 0-0. Here is the CEO of Bofakwa Tano, Kojo Alfonso, who was also assaulted.
The whole thing started when we were going for the warming up. They started beating my players, and then after that, the halftime, they prevented the referee from entering the dressing room. They wanted to assault them. And then when they said they will not enter, then the fight started making noise. So we played the match to the end. And then they started assaulting the referees, and then my coach, and then myself. So I didn't even take my chances. Like I should have scored them like 5 goals.
Kojo Alfonso there is the CEO of Tano Bofakwa speaking after he, together with match officials, were assaulted in a Division 1 league game yesterday. That's your sport.
Thank you very much, Hans. Enjoy the rest of the day. Now, General Overseer of the Perez Chapel International, Bishop Charles Ajinasare, has defended wealthy men of God who have often come under attack by some members of the public for living affluent lifestyles. Some have even gone to the extent of accusing the men of God of extorting monies from their members to fund their lavish lifestyle. However, Bishop Ajinasare disagrees. He explains in an exclusive interview on A Walk with Jesus.
I don't have a jet yet. If I got one, I wouldn't reject it. You see, I travel around the world. There are times you are going to DRC, Dr. Congo.
Yes.
You have to take a flight from here to Togo or to Kenya. And there are times you do transit, or Ethiopia, you do transit of 8 hours.
That's punishment.
When the journey from here to DR Congo is 3 hours, if I had a flight, I would have cut off all those hours if I had a plane to myself.
Well, Bishop Charles Ajinasare, founder of Perez Chapel International, Mapitso Sebedi, is here with Showbiz. And what a weekend it was. Mapitso, tell us more about it.
What a weekend. Now, organizers of the 3 music awards, you know, this year they decided to just wow us. What? I won't do any more talking. Noella Carnielli has the rap for us.
It was advertised as a night to celebrate Ghanaian music. And even before it commenced, viewers knew they would simply get more. The event saw performances from Dinah Hamilton, who picked 3 awards, including Gospel Act of the Year. Stonebwoy also swept 3 awards, namely Viral Song of the Year with his Putu song, Highlight Song of the Year, and Album of the Year. Sweeter than honey. Many Ghanaians were also happy to see Eno Baroni win the Rapper of the Year. Viewers were treated to spectacular musical performances. Ladies, Mr. Drew teamed up with Kiddy to celebrate legendary music group Osibisa. Kiddy grabbed the topmost award of the night.
A big thank you to God for this. I'm so grateful. My family, my entire team that's working hardly behind me. I'm so grateful.
Gaga,
Loads of enjoyment.
Another person who's enjoying today, MFA, is President Akufo-Addo.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
A mind day for you.
Hey, every time
you have to learn. You have to learn. Charlie, you have to learn.
Hey.
You have a long way to go.
My mind day for you. Hey, Auntie Rebecca. Greetings, all. Greetings.
Pressure. And that's it for the midday news here on Joy 99.7 FM. There's more news when you log on to my joyonline.com. Of course, these are some of the stories that you've been reading about, the Auditor General and the lecturers involved. Of course, the Speaker also giving the Minister 2 hours to appear before Parliament. That and more on myjoyonline.com. Talking about relationships, Pastor Mensah Otabil has part 3 of relationships. Please stay.
You've worked hard for your money, and that is why we are constantly creating more secure and innovative ways for you to keep your money safe everywhere you go. Experience a safer and more secure way to do all your transactions with MTN Momo. Present your national ID